presidential election is still more than a year and a half away, but already there's one prominent progressive that has decided to throw their weight behind a candidate. And that individual is Barbara Lee, and who she decided to endorse may or may not surprise you. She is endorsing Kamala Harris. So she tweeted this out, quote, "I am thrilled to endorse Kamala Harris for..."
Okay, let's, excuse me, be honest about this. Because, I mean, we're honest when we talk about who Trump feels threatened by, or this is the reason that Mike is talking about this here is because we feel threatened by it. And I know that we don't like to admit we feel threatened because we're still the weaker side. I don't think we're really weaker, but they call us weaker. The mainstream media acts like we're nobodies, right? Even though Bernie Sanders got more votes during the primary, he won the popular vote, at least by what I saw, because he repeatedly said he got, I forget, like anywhere from 12 to 14 million votes, while Hillary Clinton only at the very most said she got 12. And I used to hear that repeatedly, over and over and over again. And we all know that a lot of people couldn't vote for Bernie because they were registered as independents and they couldn't vote in the primaries. And we know all about all the cheating and everything that went on, and a lot of people will poo-poo that, but the fact is, you know, there was whiteout and there was all kinds of other shit that people knew. The 120,000 votes in the Bronx or Brooklyn or somewhere, all very well documented. All technically, I guess, legal, since nobody went to jail over it. So we feel threatened. We feel threatened both by the cheating and by the overwhelming weight of the establishment. You know, they're able to buy off somehow so-called progressives. I've always thought Barbara Lee was kind of flaky anyway, and there isn't really, besides the new Democrats that have been elected, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC as we're calling her these days, there aren't any real progressives and progressive Democrats. You know, I mean, we're just getting started. We're just a baby. We really are. You know, something I'd like to mention is that, remind you of, is that Bernie didn't start this thing. Okay, we did. We said no to Hillary. We said we want to, we didn't have any idea. I didn't even know who Bernie Sanders was at the time. I was a little bit shocked to find out that, because Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist, but he's a communist. You know, Republicans love to call him that, and they're right. You know, caring about poor people, caring about the suffering of your own people that's what defines a communist. Nothing else. You know, we're not supporters of fascism or Stalinism or Maoism or anything like that. Communists have nothing to do with any of that. That's something put in our history books by propagandists to demonize the very idea of communism. You know, all we are is people who see suffering and react. We're very much reactionaries. You know, Bernie Sanders didn't invent communism or socialism or whatever you want to call it. He didn't create the desire to have something better than establishment Democrats. We did. We didn't even know who would step in. Bernie saw. I mean, he's definitely an opportunist. He saw us. At the time we were going after Elizabeth Warren, even though we didn't understand that Elizabeth Warren just is, I mean, she's very much pretending to be what we want, but Bernie's a lot closer, you know, in reality. And he saw us courting her and saw that she wasn't willing to go up against Hillary, and that should have been our first, you know, warning bells about her. Now, since then, she's decided she wants to run for president, and she's feeling that power hunger, and she's very much claiming to be one of us, to taking on everything, you know, universal health care, free education. I think she endorses pretty much Bernie Sanders, but you know, that reminds me of when Hillary did the same, roughly the same thing. I remember I made a meme of her being a chameleon, and just basically, and another one for Halloween where she was going around in a Bernie Sanders mask. And you know, I mean, I've said this before and it's true. Once you lose somebody's trust, it's very hard to get it back. I mean, that's what happened to Hillary. We kind of trusted her. I never really trusted her, but a lot of people do still trust her. But why should you? I mean, she's such a total fake. And I mean, we have the same, not the same, but a similar problem with Warren. She didn't endorse Bernie. She could have changed the whole election. She could have thrown wherever it is she's from, that where Boston, Massachusetts, could have thrown it to Bernie in the very beginning by endorsing him. Could have probably been vice president. Would have probably won the primaries for us if she'd gotten behind Bernie. We all felt that way. We all felt like it. And instead, even though we have the video of her saying that Hillary stabbed her in the back on, I forget what it was, some political thing. She's being interviewed by Bill Moyers on PBS. And just flat out says that, you know, she decided that she came and said, oh, we're all in support of your bill for, I forget what it was, something for women. And then she got back to her rich, wealthy donors in New York and turned around and voted against it. Just completely stabbed her in the back. And then she turns around and supports Hillary Clinton against Bernie. And so we never forget things like that. And her whole background is just lily white, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma City, typical, she used to flip houses for a living. Just everything about her is wrong, other than the fact that the mainly Republicans beat up on her over her claiming that there was going to be a crash, and then she turned out to be right. That's her claim to fame, right? And so we don't much care for her. She's just not perfect. And Bernie was perfect right up to that point where he did what he was told. Everybody would have liked to seen him be the rebel that we hoped he would be at the convention and tell Hillary to go take a flying fuck, right? That would have been the coolest thing ever. Just bail on the DNC, go independent, run as an independent against, just like the Republicans were doing. Gary, whatever his name was. And yeah, be against her in the presidential races and independent. And I still say, you run as an independent, saying you're going to be a Democrat when you win, when you beat the Democrat. So you beat the Democrat and the Republican, you become president of the United States. Say, like I said, I'm really a Democrat. I just refuse to be washed out in a total illegal primary, because the primary was illegal. Bernie's definitely far more popular than Hillary. So the primary process, that's something that we either need to fix, or we need to fix it by political brinksmanship or something. We need to find a way around it. If establishment Democrats are just going to cheat the actual base, the overwhelming will of the voters in the Democratic parties, if they're just going to use the primary process to cheat all the voters out of their own choice, then we have to go independent, but saying that we're going to be a Democrat. See? I know there's nothing illegal about it, because I've seen lots of people get elected and then switch parties. Now, how they can do that going against their own base is beyond me. Guys like, I think Lieberman did it, but there was others. There were people who were governors and stuff, and they got elected as Democrats. Then they flipped to Republican once they were in office. So there's nothing stopping us from doing this. But I say we do it not like they did it, where they didn't tell anybody they were going to flip, but during the whole campaign, just flat out tell people Democrats cheat, the DNC cheats, the process is rigged, so I'm going to run as an independent, but I'm really a Democrat. And as soon as I get elected, I'm going to say I'm a Democrat. And obviously, everybody will have to be able to vote for him. Not quite sure how that works. Because I think that's okay. Because I think in a election for president, it doesn't matter what you're registered as. Like, I'm a Democrat, but I can vote Republican if I want to. So I should be okay. I should be able to vote for Bernie, even though he runs as an independent, knowing that he's going to be a Democrat when he gets elected. I mean, explain to me if I'm wrong, but that seems like the perfect way of getting around if it turns out that the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, are not going to relinquish their illegal, fascist, just crooked primary, then that seems to me like it'd be a perfect way around them and their, gangster takeover of my party. Anybody's welcome to tell me how I might be wrong there, but I don't see any flaws in that strategy. So let's talk about it. Now, as far as this goes, like I'm saying, we need to stop pretending like we're not afraid, because this is establishment gangster politics at its best. Hijacking supposedly Barbara Lee's a progressive, according to what Mike was saying right there, and you've got people like Kamala Harris supposedly hijacking progressives to back establishment Democrats. And obviously that is really scary, huh? I mean, so we're going to have to call these people out. And, I'm really getting sick of black people turning on progressives. Progressives are all the black people have got. The black politicians have got to stop, being weak, not supporting their own people. Kamala Harris ain't gonna do nothing for you. She's an establishment Democrat. Progressives are the only ones who are truly for making major changes. And we all know that the current situation isn't functional.